Hey, it's such a nice day out here on this lake as we try to catch awards with our Oscar bait.
Yeah, and for anybody that's new to our channel and everything, you haven't heard us talk about this new show. Oscar bait is, how would you explain it?
Great question. So, the very common use of phrase during award season Oscar bait is the term for movies that are looking to win Oscars and eventually do. Our show, we are looking at all of the Academy Award winning films for Best Picture. And we're starting today with the most recent winner of the 2019 film, Parasite.
Yeah, and we wanted to start off with Parasite just because it's, in recent memory, it's the most recent winner, of course. But, going forward, we want to kind of randomize it. That way, we're not trying to stay just in newer movies or older movies. So each week, we're going to be bouncing around throughout the years of past Oscar winners.
So, uh, we both watched the film, of course. I watched it two times.
Yeah, and I only had a chance to watch it one time, which I kind of, after seeing it the first time, I kind of wish I had time to watch it a second time, but it was certainly something, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think we'll both just start off and say that it did deserve that Best Picture win.
Yeah, yeah, that was my biggest question going into it because I knew I had heard the hype around it early. I mean, not early last year, but when it first started making the rounds at the festivals, and when it finally started to pick up a lot going into the Oscars, and when it finally won, I was actually just curious if it was more of the fact that it's, I don't know, the first kind of foreign movie that had that much buzz going into the Oscars, or if it was really that much on another level compared to all the other ones.
Well, I think it's more interesting just because we follow more like geek news, how so many people were freaking out over like the Joker and then it not even being like even close to that with it being something totally different.
Yeah,
The reason I wanted to watch it again, we'll get into it, but man, there's some stuff that you're watching the first time through that you don't think about, and then when it comes up again,
yeah. So a quick plug, because if you're new to our channel and this is your first thing that you've watched, we also have a website, towercitymedia.com, where we also do reviews and kind of just general discussions about whatever it is we're talking about. But in this case, I did the review for Parasite that I posted the other day,
it
and
was
that was
good.
one of the things yeah, that was one of the things I really highlighted was how many things there were that were so small that you see them and you feel like, okay, maybe that'll come back later on, or oh, that's just kind of like something small, a little throwaway thing. But it seemed to me like every single thing that happened in this movie, no matter what it was, came back for some reason or another.
I think so. In talking outside of this, I think we are like the perfect kind of duo to talk about it because you are way more director focused, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And I am way more like so much of my notes are just about, hey, here's this theme and this idea that the movie's talking about.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I wish I would have had like you had a chance to watch it the second time, because now that I know what all's going on, I would have looked out a little bit more for those, different meanings behind the meaning, all that stuff. But I mean, if you read the review, it is very director focused. I mean, I was um, pretty forward with how much I like the director's choices that he made throughout the whole movie.
Bong Joon-ho, correct?
Yep. And do you know what else he did? The first movie I ever saw of his.
Is it Snowpiercer? Did he do
It
that?
is.
That
He
is a
did
very good movie.
Snowpiercer, and then he also did that Netflix movie Okja,
Which, yeah,
if that's
that
how you say it.
it is. That movie, I was like, I'm sure uh Snowpiercer is good. And Okja, I mean, it looks like it's probably good, but it does not look like the kind of movie I want to watch.
Yeah, and I thought it was. I mean, I could tell from Snowpiercer how good he was. I mean, he definitely is very visionary, and you can see that he's really got the skill in that movie.
Yeah.
But And Okja really wasn't, that much of my kind of movie. I did watch it, but I never felt like it was as good or on the same level as say Snowpiercer. But this movie, I mean, it feels like Parasite just brings everything that he brought that was good in those other movies together in, I guess, the perfect storm for any kind of director.
That's good. It's interesting that someone who is kind of known in America for doing like this really like gritty action movie is now doing like this almost subtle by comparison, like drama.
Yeah, that was one of the words I use a lot was subtle, but it's kind of like subtle with an asterisk because it's not that it's just subtle and it's quiet all the time, but it's so smooth at how it executes on everything or how he executes on everything. Like it's not a hit you over the head kind of theme when he's talking about different meanings behind meanings as far as social commentary and everything goes. Because a lot of movies that come out lately, it seems like they really are trying to drive a message across as far as like, oh, this is how I feel politically or however it is. But in this
You mean
case,
Joker?
yeah, that was my biggest issue with it. But this movie, it was just you knew what it was trying to say, but that wasn't necessarily the focus of the movie. It balanced that really well because the
Or
focus was obviously on the story and the characters and how that all unfolded with the backdrop of what's going on socially between these two families.
and I would say that it is both incredible it is both subtle and incredibly not subtle at all.
That's why I said settle with an asterisk at the end of it.
And the main reason I'll get into it once we go through because I love to do so the main reason I watched it was two things. One, The Rock. The
Yeah.
Rock that he gets that
Mhm.
because that starts out and you kind of ignore it, but then it makes such a big play. I'm like, okay, I need to focus on why is that rock important? But also so I could take a do a summary so we can go through it and talk about it as we go through it. So it's
Yeah,
not the
and
scatter shot.
real quick on this movie as a whole, you know, if you all haven't heard our show 52 ever, we're watching, Justice League 52 times this year, once a week every week, and we're going to talk about it. This movie feels like the kind of movie that you could do that with if we weren't doing it just, on DC movies and everything. But this movie feels like one of those ones that you could watch and pick up on something new every single time you watch it, or focus on one specific aspect because there's just so many layers to it, even though it is subtle at the same time and may not feel like it's as deep as it really is. But the further you start to look into it, you kind of go into a bit of a rabbit hole.
Yeah, because even like scene one, which the movie opens with the Kim family in their below ground house. Is that what you would call it, or is it like an apartment?
It looked like, I mean, I
It's not
I
really a
would say it's an
house.
apartment, but it's like a below, like you said, below ground apartment kind of.
Where they are fighting for free Wi-Fi in order to hear back from a job where they have to afford pizza boxes for like minimum wage. They can
Which was
only
very
get
interesting.
yeah. That's the most fascinating thing. Which a lot of this I don't know. Like moving forward, if it's like, because some of the stuff I find interesting is I don't know if it's like Korean, like South Korean, like that's just the society, or if it's what.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
if I watched it again, I would want to focus just to see if there's anything else in the movie that goes back to the pizza box scene. Like, is there anything specific that hits on the reason why they had that in there? Or was
uh,
it just because they were trying to show the struggle for a job?
probably. There's something in there that I'll just go through it then.
Yeah.
The only Wi-Fi they can get is by sitting on the toilet and stealing discount Wi from a discount Starbucks. They get the job. They get the job order, and they start folding the boxes, only for a fumigation company to come by, and they let them spray the fumigation chemicals into their house to kill all their bugs. And during this, the father is like furiously watching a YouTube video of how to fold the boxes super quickly to show just how dedicated he is.
Hmm.
And everyone else is like dying and coughing, and that's really good. Just this one setup that the window is always open. That window outside is always open.
That's true.
And again, just to how dedicated the dad is, how focused he is, and just kind of the scenario. When the pizza company comes to collect the pizza boxes, they are not up to code, and they have to take a pay cut. Which my main thing watching it a second time is, so I think the most interesting thing about the movie is how they use smell.
Hmm.
And I think they should have started it in this scene where instead of them not being folded correctly, them all smelling like chemicals. I thought that would have been a
Ah,
little
I
more
see.
interesting. Because then you're already getting an idea, oh, scent, the idea of smell being important and being something about class. So
You know,
that's like
I just
a little thing. But that I saw that I was like, man, the one thing that's never gonna leave my mind about this movie is the idea of smell in class division.
hmm
And I thought they could bring it up even earlier.
see. I just realized something that it may be looking too much into it, but the folding the box thing. Do you remember what percentage it was that were not folded correctly? So I know she
Uh,
said
I
it
think
was a specific
I
number.
think it was 25%.
So
You
I'm
think
thinking
it's the
about how
dad?
well I'm thinking about how the dad shows how dedicated he is by um, watching the video so he can get faster, and it seems like that he's the only one at the time that's really getting him down right. But it kind of makes me think back to later on in the movie when they're talking about having a plan and
Oh
how
yeah,
you
that's
can't
such a
always
good
have a plan.
scene. Such a good scene
But
too.
it, I think it kind of, it may be looking too much into it, but the whole being as dedicated as you are about something, even as simple as the pizza box is, even if you're that dedicated, you might not be able to successfully do everything right.
Yeah,
Hence why there were 25% of the pizza boxes that weren't folded correctly. And then because they're not folded correctly, they fall apart. Just
maybe.
like a plan, so just like a plan would fall apart.
That is very clever. The son plays mediator between the workers and his parents and finagles a job interview that he never goes to. Just like to
Hmm.
mention that. I guess he doesn't actually get the interview. I guess it's more like, hey, just think about it. But uh, later that night, the Kims are celebrating the fact that they have Wi-Fi again, only for a drunk guy to piss near their house. Uh, which he comes back in a very interesting way. The pisser is sent away by one of the sons, friends from school who is going to college. The friend Min brings a special rock that's supposed to grant wealth. Which by the time I saw that, I'm like, oh, okay, now you know exactly what this is saying.
That makes more sense. Okay.
Because okay, because I would finish this sentence. Min and the son meet for drinks. Min offers the son a. I give them names. I give them their undercover names.
Hmm.
Because those are the ones I can remember because they're in English. Because I'm American and I'm bad like that. Which I feel bad doing it that way because I'm almost making the movie's point for them by doing that. But also,
We're trying.
the name is Kevin and Jess. Well, to be fair, the name Kevin is close to what his actual name is in the movie, so I don't feel too bad
Hmm.
about it, but Jessica's not. Min offers the son a job as an English tutor for a rich family. Min says he likes the girl and will ask her out once she gets to university, which is something that comes up. So, the rock. Think about like, okay, a rock that grants wealth. I mean, it's like superstition, that's fine.
Hmm.
But rocks weigh you down.
True.
So if you're hoarding it, you actually get heavier, meaning you cannot succeed. You're being weighed down. Just
And later on, he drops the rock too, and
he
that was
does.
his. That was his
Yeah.
downfall. Was he drops the rock because he couldn't hold the. I mean, I guess he couldn't hold the weight.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's also him using that as a weapon multiple times, and then he anyway, we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Uh the daughter makes a fake diploma in an internet cafe that is 100% South Korean. That just looks what I know South Korean
Yeah.
cuz I've watched like professional video gamer documentaries about those people, and that's exactly what they look like.
And I just want to talk about how this movie is very much just three simple acts. I say
Well,
simple, but it's not really simple. But the whole
they
first act with the comedy is so like I'm sure there's some things that went over our heads because we're not as in tune with their culture, and so I'm sure there's a lot of things that they thought were even funnier, however that was.
I
This whole
mean, the
first act was so so funny how everything just kind of went the way it did.
yes, the son. Oh, we haven't even got to my favorite bit of comedy. The son says that he's just made it in advance because his idea is like he's gonna get it and then he's actually gonna go to university.
Hmm.
Uh, the son goes to the Park family's house, a giant house that was created by a famous architect before he moved and is located up on a hill, which that's important for later.
Hmm.
The mom, who is simple as she's described, does not care about diplomas and wants to see him in action with her daughter, which boy. The son, who goes by Kevin, so I'm gonna call him Kevin, says the daughter needs to slash through the test with vigor, like it's a jungle. And that scene, so he like grabs her arm and feels for her pulse, for her blood pressure and stuff, her heart rate.
Yeah,
That was the most, for some reason, that one scene looked like the most like manga or anime thing I ever saw in a live action movie.
that is true. I saw a couple things that made me think of that too, but yeah.
Uh the mom pays Kevin, but does take a little extra out. So that may have you may have missed it, but she like counts it and then she takes a couple she takes some money out of it.
And
So
why was that?
that's I don't know why she does it. She just does it, which I think is really interesting.
Hmm.
On his way out, the Park's son, who I do not name, but it's like the song or something, very simple like that, is a
Yeah.
big Native American Indian fan, which is really interesting. Like that whole idea is super interesting. And as a Cub Scout, the mom
Yep.
thinks he's an autistic genius, which is the best thing in the movie. That scene where he's
Artistic
looking at
genius.
it and he's like, "Is it a chimpanzee?" No, that's a self-portrait. Of course. Uh, and Kevin
Yeah,
says that he knows.
Jessica couldn't pass that up.
Yeah, and Kevin says that he knows an art tutor. Kevin brings his sister as the art tutor, and her name is goes by Jessica. They have this really cool song to remember their backstory.
What's that?
The Jessica from Illinois, Chicago, that whole
Oh
thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's really clever. I really like that. The Park kids sit, they kind of hide and watch as Jessica and Kevin meet with the madam, the mom. She's the
Hmm.
only one who goes by the madam, so that's easy to remember. Kevin leaves to go work with the daughter, where they flirt, and the girlfriend asks the girl asks if Jessica is dating, like if they're dating Jessica and Kevin, which is funny. Is her brother and sister, and that she says her brother's faking being a genius. Jessica says that the mom cannot sit in on the lesson. The mom gets antsy and has the housekeeper make two drinks and goes to check on them, only to find that the son and Jessica are downstairs already. I think in that scene when the housekeeper goes downstairs,
Hmm.
it's supposed to be setting up that she might also go and do something else for later.
Yeah.
Also, it's
Yeah.
setting up plum juice because later the guy drinks plum juice, drinks
Hmm.
that entire thing. So it's doing two things with that. Where am I? There we go. Uh, Jessica confronts the madam and asks if the son had a traumatic event in like first grade or kindergarten because the kid's like 7. And I love how the mom just freaks out. Jessica says that she will work with the son as a form of tutoring and therapy, and that his paintings have a schizophrenic zone in them because he
So
draws like a black dot.
is the I don't know if this is the right word for it, but the overacting a Eastern kind of thing, like how she freaks out about. Like to me, I mean, I don't know if it's just different of watching it because it was in subtitle and I don't understand the language and everything. But when she freaks out about the whole, what happened in his past or did something happen to him, it just felt like a bit of overacting. But I don't know if maybe that's just because we perceive it differently.
I think so because in some scenes, like much later, uh, when everything is revealed with the housekeeper,
Mm-hmm.
but before everything goes off the rails, that scene where the housekeeper's with the Kim mom,
Mm-hmm.
like that stuff would also call the same thing. So I think it's just their style because I know uh no like anime and stuff is overacted and so are their movies. So that's just how they do it in Japan. So they're very similar that way.
Yeah, I was just curious about that because that was one thing that it didn't like throw me off, but I was just kind of like, okay, that just seems a little like it was overacted, but I just didn't know if it was me or because they do it differently. But yeah, that
The
was
mom
just
is
something
also
that I noticed.
the mom is also that dramatic. So I'm not.
And that too,
The father comes home with the lights turning on automatically behind him as he walks up the stairs.
which I never noticed watching
Also,
the first,
why
well, originally.
I had to watch it a second time because I'm like, is that
Hmm.
true? Does it go all the way back? Uh, the father has his driver take Jessica home. She tells the driver to take her to the subway. I guess is it what Heiwa station is?
That's what I was thinking, yeah, or
Uh,
train
and she,
station.
yeah, and she ditches her underwear in the car. Later, when the Kim family is at a cafeteria, like a buffet, Jessica says that she left her underwear as to set up an opening because their father used to be a valet driver between jobs.
See, I didn't pick up on what their plan was until then, until it was uh, getting the driver fired. Like I didn't
Yeah,
understand why. Like I didn't pick up on why she was leaving it there, what the purpose was. Like
yeah,
I
there
wasn't
was,
sure where exactly the story was going with that, but once they got the driver fired, then I was like, oh, I see what they're doing,
yeah. Jessica said that she just looked up art psychology and just made up the rest as she went.
which is funny.
Which I almost really wish that Bong Joon-ho just had that entire bit of dialogue with her and the mom completely like improv, like, hey, just improv, just to make it sell it even more. That'd be fascinating. The park father finds the underwear in the back seat. The father comes home with again the lights turning on automatically above him as he enters. He shows the madam the underwear and realizes that either the driver is a cross-dresser, having sex, and or even doing drugs with his girlfriend
It's
in the car.
interesting.
The cross-dressing one is really weird. Like they go through that and then they're like, wait, no, it's women's. Maybe he's having sex with them. And then why would you like leave your underwear? Because you're buzzed out your mind.
Yeah, when they first said that, I was like, wow, that's a little extreme.
They
That's
decide to
not the
let
first
him
thing that would have came to my mind.
uh they decide to let him go quietly. Jessica strategically overhears and interrupts their conversation.
Hmm.
The madam confronts Jessica on how the driver acted. Jessica says nothing happened, just that, he was going to take her home and she didn't want that, and that the man was very happy that she didn't let him do that. And says that she has a family member who used to have a driver that she was so close that she called uncle. And the madam wants to meet this Mr. Kim, which is just
Mhm.
his name. It took to this second watch for me to realize, oh, that's just his name.
Mr. Kim.
The dad, Mr. Kim, checks out a Mercedes. He will be driving at the dealership and then goes to the park office where he sits outside the conference room.
Hmm.
Which is nice. The dad seems like a really good guy, and I really like the chemistry that the two dads have. Kim drives father home, and turns off the GPS, which impresses Park father. Mr.
I
Kim
thought
says,
he.
"Yeah,
Oh, God. I was gonna
uh,
say I thought he was gonna slip up there because I wasn't sure where they were going, but if it was for whatever reason somewhere that was kind of in the I don't want to say the more poverty-stricken area, and that's when he was turning it off, I was gonna be like, oh no, he's gonna start getting questioned like, oh, how do you know this area so well?
no, this
But
this movie does
it didn't
something
it
way
didn't
more
go that way.
interesting. They do
Yeah.
something way more interesting than that, and we'll get to it." Which impresses him, and Mr. Kim sees driving as a companionship.
Hmm.
Jessica plans a way to remove the housekeeper who has been there since the previous owner. They find that she is deadly allergic to peaches, which is the most ridiculous thing.
Didn't see that coming.
They come up with a plan of sending her to the hospital, where Mr. Kim overhears and then tells the madam that she overheard the housekeeper saying that she has tuberculosis. And then they set up a scenario where uh where the madam gets to see the housekeeper getting sick and then adds hot sauce to the little napkin that she throws away. And then what makes it all better is that it was scripted and rehearsed by Kevin
Like,
almost
it
exactly.
was that was perfect. I was laughing so hard when I found out that part.
Oh, that's
How
so good.
scripted it was.
uh and how they don't want the son to get infected with tuberculosis for obvious reasons. Uh it works and the old housekeeper is fired. The housekeeper looks back one last time at the house, which you think nothing of it the first time, then you're like, oh my god.
So at this point, I was I wasn't sure obviously where the story was going. I felt like rich the the rich family. I felt like they were too oblivious to everything to have anything to do with, the downfall of this luck that they were having. But I was suspecting one of the two that got fired, but it definitely wasn't the housekeeper. I was thinking the driver. So
Well, it's
I was definitely thrown off on that one.
uh I will say that I'll explain why in a second, but I think it works a little bit. So
Hmm.
on a drive home, Mr. Kim gives the park father a card of an upscale cleaning service for drivers and home and house workers. The father notes how he likes that he does not when people don't cross the line, and that the house but which the housekeeper did not do. He liked the housekeeper because she didn't do that, but she ate for two.
Hmm.
I mean, she ate a lot. Uh,
Yeah.
the number that he gives her, the Mr. Kim gives the dad, goes right to a second cell phone owned by the Kims. And this gets their mom into the house. And I think the reason that it kind of works is that it's not Kevin being like, oh, I also have this. Oh, I also have this.
Yeah, it
It's
was
like,
funny that it was each one. So um, the it was Kevin's buddy originally knew a guy, and then Kevin knew a girl,
his his
his
cousin's like
sister.
roommate, his cousin's
Yeah,
roommate, Jess,
and then
that's the
his
backstory,
and then and then Jessica knew somebody, and now
has an
Mr. Kim
uncle,
knows
has a
somebody.
has an yeah, has an uncle that used to drive for the family. So it's again always that like second separation.
Well, and he
And then
sets it up perfectly too. He's like, "Here, how about you just don't say anything about me giving this to you? That way, it makes you like the good husband."
which he likes a
Which
lot.
Yeah, which I mean, you can't get any more perfect than that as far as like trying to trick somebody.
Oh, it's so good. One night, Puck Dad comes home with a bunch of gifts for his son. I guess that's setting up the birthday, right? Those are all his birthday presents.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure.
I assume so, because
I
that's when
didn't
they
pick up on it. Yeah,
well, that's when they get the walkie-talkies is in that scene.
that that's what it was. Okay.
And the son notices that the new housekeeper, Mr. Kim, the new housekeeper, Mr. Kim, and Jessica all smell the same. And that blew my mind. That was like the turning point for me of, oh, okay, this movie is interesting.
Yeah, I wasn't sure where that was going because at first when he said that Mr. Uh, Kim and the mom, shoot, what's her name? Or his
I just
wife, I guess.
I just call her like Kim Mom or like Mama Kim or
Yes.
whatever throughout this.
When he first said that they smelled similar, I was like, oh, are they gonna like get fired because they think they've been screwing each other?
Yeah, you
But
don't know where
then
it's
they added
going.
in the brother. Yeah, but then they added in the brother and sister. I was like, okay, now I don't know what's going on with this. But again, they were oblivious to it.
uh Kevin said that they were need to do different sets of laundry and like use different soap and stuff. The Kims reflect on how fortunate they got, and then the pisser returns, which uh this entire scene could be cut except for the fact that shows Kevin going out there and first he's gonna grab the rock and bash the guy's head in,
Hmm.
setting that up, and then he like grabs water and throws it on him. So it's kind of showing him growing to being like Min from earlier, where he's
Yeah.
confronting people. He's got the hots for the same chick that he's tutoring. And he says the same thing later about dating her when they go to university.
Hmm.
So I think that scene could be cut, but it's like showing his growth as a person.
Yeah, it was interesting. I didn't really. I guess it just comes down to the growth then because I didn't really even thinking back on it. I didn't necessarily see anything that really had that much relevance other than the picking up or taking the water, I guess, instead of the stone.
Well, that and the fact that he gets peed on by the guy is also very funny.
Well, yeah, that
Where the
too.
guy spins around, he has got like this giant stream, like it's like a water hose. I'm like, dang. So it's that. There's another scene in here that I think could be kind of cut, I guess. But also I like the transition, the match cut from that like the overhead lamp, the street lamp to the sun in the next
Mhm.
well, because the next morning the Pucks are planning a camping trip for the son's birthday.
Which that's when I picked up where the story was gonna go. This part was a little bit predictable for me. Probably the only somewhat predictable part.
Yeah. The daughter doesn't want to go and would rather study English. The madam with Kevin, because he's so dreamy. The madam has a new housekeeper, the Mama Kim.
Mm-hmm.
Pack everything up and break down the care for the dogs, because there are also dogs that are very cute. The only one I remember is Zoomy because Zoom is taking over the world now.
Yeah, I didn't even remember the word dogs.
Yeah. Well, yes, and yeah, because you would think that'd be the one thing that he could play with really well, but he doesn't, which is
Hmm.
fine. Uh, Now that the pucks are away, the Kims play. Kevin takes one of the daughter's diaries, Jessica watches TV in the bath, and the mother shock puts.
Which was interesting.
Well, I don't think it's shock put because shock put's just a single ball, but she is like an Olympic athlete, which I think is interesting.
Well, I was more curious of like where that ball went.
It's smashed into somebody's
Like,
house. We know that.
like, she just kind of throws it, and I'm like, huh, okay,
You, well, you do hear it break a window off screen. You hear like a shattering
yeah,
noise. And from there we are on to the longest night ever. The longest
yeah. I
night
didn't.
ever.
So it was predictable to me. I'll just say this real quick before you get into it.
Yeah, because
It
I
was
have a whole
predictable to
lot.
me. Yeah, it was predictable to me that they were going to all be there and they were going to take advantage of the family being gone, and
The
then
Park family.
yeah, and then something was going to happen, and they were going to, they were going to come back early, and maybe that's where they were going to get in trouble at, or maybe
Yeah,
family comes back and the family's actually like really evil or something. Like I wasn't sure where exactly it was going after that point, but I knew that they were going to get caught somehow with them coming back early.
yeah, them coming
But
back early,
but
you could kind of call because it starts out sunny day, hope it's sunny
hmm
for camping, and then it rains.
yeah.
So you could see that bit coming, but everything else you just don't
No,
see.
everything else I was like, and that's when it comes down to, because he wrote it too, writing and directing. That's when it came down to ultimately where I'm just like, okay, he knows exactly how to just mess with everybody, but in a way that doesn't scream that you're only making a movie to mess with people, but in just that he writes it so well because you're thinking, and he knows that you're thinking that it's going to happen a certain way, but then takes it in a totally different direction that works out perfectly.
So the Kim family are enjoying the empty house, eating, drinking, and chatting about, all while like thunderstorms. This is the scene where Kevin says that he wants to date the girl
Hmm.
when they get to college, and they talk about, oh my gosh, this is my future daughter-in-law's house that we're in. Which I'm like, yeah, if he does that, your entire plan is screwed, but it's fine.
I was thinking
Because
that too.
which is, I mean, that's I think just that teenage love of not thinking it through. Uh,
Hmm.
we see the parents acting like they're mad for some reason. I don't know. The daughter, the Jessica, eating all of the dog food because it's like upscale Japanese crab legs, basically,
Hmm.
and it just tastes like human food's funny. Then the old housekeeper comes by because she forgot something in the basement, and it says that she cut the CCTV footage to be safe.
Which I won't say, I'll wait till you get there, but that was one of those very small things that I just didn't expect to come back into play, and it actually does. Because I completely forgot about it until they brought it back in at the end of the movie. And
Mama
I was,
Kim. Yeah.
oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
it's so good. It's good. That's all I can say. It's very smart. Like it's not clever because it's just remembering. It's just
Yeah,
remembering
because
the movie
I
you
just
wrote.
completely forgot about it, but as soon as they showed it again, I was like, dang, that's so clever.
Yeah, it's just so. Oh yeah, you're thinking. You're checking back. You're checking your work back.
Hmm.
Uh oh, it's more of the he knew how he wanted it to end, so he had to think how would he do it. Maybe it's one of
Hmm.
those things, but you don't know. Mama Kim lets her in and go down to the basement. She's down there a while, so Kevin has the mom go look. Turns out behind the cabinet is an old bomb shelter in case North Korea attacks. That's super clever.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It does, and that's one of those things like I never thought about because again, we're not in South Korea, so we're not dealing with that North Korean tension so
Hmm.
close. We just get it from, the news. So I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so cool. The rest of the Kims sneak down. Turns out, deep below the old house, the old housekeeper kept her husband hidden down there because he
Which totally
accrued.
threw me off.
This is amazing, right? So the reason he's down there is because he accrued so many debts with loan sharks who want to kill him, and so she snuck him down there. Apparently, I would you say because we don't know how long. I'd assume since the first owner.
Yeah, it was, wasn't it 4 years or so? More than four
It's
years?
Yeah, it was a while. Uh the Kim mom. So of course this freaks Mama Kim out because she's like, "Oh my God, you've been hiding a person down here this entire time."
Yeah,
Eh,
when she finally went to go like check and see downstairs like what was going on, and she found like what she was doing, and then when she started following her down the stairs and it just kept going deeper and deeper and deeper, I was like, what the hell's going on here?
That was like the most tense moment of the entire film.
That's when I was just so not confused, but I just had no idea what was about to happen, where it was going, or anything like that.
I think though that because this is where the movie officially changes
Mm-hmm.
entirely. I think like this is the kind of biggest gimme you have to give the movie for it to work.
Mm-hmm.
Is that he's down there. I wish there was
Which,
maybe
I
like
mean,
you have the eating for two line, you have some like looks, but there's nothing like concrete to set it up. But it's still like, oh my gosh.
yeah, I was just, and like it seems a little ridiculous when they're kind of explaining it, but at the same time, I never once really thought about it more than that one time. I was just like, okay, that makes sense for some reason. Like it just worked for me.
That's one of those like, okay. I mean, again, maybe again, like again, if you the mob is after you because you know your business failed and you went to them for money and then you can't pay them back, so they obviously want to kill you. Makes sense.
Yeah,
Mama Kim says she's going to call the cops, only for the rest of her family to slip and fall, exposing themselves.
which that was the only time I think where I was kind of like, come on, they slipped.
Yes, yeah, uh, yeah, it's because it's that one's weird, but it does set up that Kevin does not have a good grasp on things physically,
Mm-mm.
because that's what comes up later. The old housekeeper has the upper hand now, and basically takes control and brings her husband upstairs and
Got him
holds
on
them
video.
hostage. Yes. Uh Doing this when they're upstairs, the old housekeeper and the basement man, as I call him, make fun of North Korea. Like the North Korean news, which is very funny. It's
That
so
was very
good.
funny.
I'm like, oh yeah, again, that's one of those, oh yeah. That's not something we'd ever think about making fun of them, but they must see that stuff all the time.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny.
And I love how they're like, this send button to the Park family is like a missile to North Korea from North Korea.
Is their last missile or something like that?
Yeah. And they remember good times when the basement man was let out and they were able to bask in the sunlight. During the fantasy, the Kim strike, knocking them all over, knocking everything about, going into complete chaos. They are able to delete the video off the phone and take control of the situation just in time for the Park family to call and say that they're going to be home in 8 minutes.
Which I thought it was so funny how everybody just kind of like stopped, because even though the everyone is fighting against each other, they all stop because they all know that they're still gonna be screwed if
They're
they
going to
come
be
home
extra
early.
screwed.
Like
And they
everybody's in the same boat there.
they want Madam wants the new housekeeper Mama Kim to make basically like pasta with beef in it, like a soup pasta. I don't. It's like Ramadan or Ramadan or something
With steak in it. It was
with
ramen
steak,
and steak, something and some
basically.
sauce. And
Uh, they rush to clean the house, tie up the old housekeeper and basement man. While tying up the basement man, he reveals that he's the one who's been turning on the lights behind Mr. Park out of respect because he is basically housing him and feeding him, which is
which was
super
interesting.
interesting. Oh, it's so.
Yep.
Uh, the housekeeper escapes, but Mama Kim kicks her back down the stairwell, giving her a
I,
concussion.
I thought that was so funny.
It's
I
very
don't know
funny.
why. Like,
It's
I
funny
know it's
until she hits her
serious at the
head.
time.
Well, it's
Yeah, I know
funny her
it's
falling
supposed to
until
be
she.
serious.
It's very like Looney Tunes until it's not, right? So she's tumbling like it's a cartoon, then she smacks her head, and it's very like realistic sounding. Like, ow,
Yeah.
I could feel that.
Well, I
Uh,
love the kick though that she does.
it, uh, the Mama Kim sits with the madam over dinner, and the madam explains how the boy saw a ghost from the basement, which was the basement man,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yep.
sending him into a seizure. Which that scene I think should have been set up earlier,
I
maybe.
think so too, because I think it should have been set up before they left to go camping because we had already been set up that something happened to him when he was younger.
And this is
We just didn't know. Yeah,
also why they
but if
travel because of that.
they would have just brought up why before, then we would have had more questions. Oh, I saw a ghost in the basement. Oh, okay, and
Yeah, like
then
during that scene where Jessica's asking the mom, and the mom's like, "Yeah, my son says he saw a ghost and then had a seizure." You're like,
hmm
"Okay, that's child imagination, but can get you thinking. What's the ghost? Who's the ghost? What's going on?"
yeah, and then once he saw the old housekeeper say that she needs to go like into the basement or whatever, that's when you're like, oh wait, what is she getting?
Yeah,
Is there a ghost down there? Like what's going on? So it would have made I think it would have hit a little bit better if they would have done it, but because just when they revealed it, after we already knew what was going on, it was just kind of throwaway for me. I was just like, okay. I mean, I understand why he freaked out as a kid because he probably saw him, but I didn't care as much, or you know, at the time it just felt a little bit more throwaway because it was too late.
it did. Yeah, that seemed retroactive. But that transition of her just pointing behind her, and then there's the cake being there, and then you cut to him as a kid eating the cake was cool.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Yeah.
interesting. All of this ends with the Kims, Sansa mom, hiding under the coffee table to escape
Oh,
just in time for the song to throw a fit and deciding to go camping outside in the rain in his little American teepee. Uh,
it,
the
this was one of the most tense scenes I've seen in a while.
it's tense until it's tense until it's not. Uh,
Yeah.
the Park parents watch their son. And the father says that Mr. Kim, he can smell him, and that his smell kind of crosses the line.
Yep.
And then that's where the scene should end, but instead they get all, semi intimate.
Which is interesting. Well,
Yeah,
I think
that's
it just adds a little bit more to the suspense of it too, because it's kind of like, it sets up the whole smell thing, which comes back later on, towards the end of the movie, because
yeah,
now Mr. Kim knows that, you know, he feels that way about his smell. But not
yeah.
only that, not only are they in this bad situation, and now he's feeling bad, about his smell and everything, but all three of them have to sit there and listen to these people that are doing this thing that are still, above them. I mean, technically they're above them because they're on the couch, but
Well, I
they're
mean
also in a
that's
position.
yeah, because so I was gonna get into this in a minute, at the end of this longest night ever. But yes,
Mhm.
physically above people is a thing. Uh, I think a part of it, which could be interesting to think about, is the Park family, the mom and the dad, are conventionally attractive people.
Mhm.
So maybe it's saying something about that. Like you can only watch like conventionally attractive people do these things on. You can only watch them do it. You don't get to see Mama Kim and Mr. Kim doing that. You don't get that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's saying something with that. I think it goes on too long, and if not goes on too long, should cut back to them under the table and seeing them being all awkward about it.
Yeah, I guess it could have gone either way because showing them would have given you more of that sense of understanding that
And
they were feeling
suspense
all
of
awkward
like,
about it.
yeah.
But at the same time, I can see the not showing also because you know that you're seeing what they're actually doing on the couch, but in the back of your mind, you're like, man, they must be thinking this, must be thinking that, because that's how I was like, I can imagine like how they're really feeling right now, having to listen to this or be here for this. So I don't know if it adds a little bit more depending on how you perceive it when you're watching it. If it would add more to show them feeling uncomfortable, or you watching what's going on and interpreting in your head how you think they're feeling during that.
I mean,
Because it
I
can
felt
go either way.
uncomfortable. I felt like this is weird. This is like, and it was like way too realistic. Like it's not, fictionalized really. It feels really like, no, like anyway. I did miss that during the son's whole little whole little fit that the daughter sends a text, like sends a video of it to Kevin because she's got the hots for him.
Which is funny. His phone beeped and then his mom coughed at the same time.
Yeah, he has this silence. So that's really good. Mama Kim texts Kevin saying that the Parks are asleep. This is like I don't know how much later this is, but they are able to eventually make it out of the house, and you're like, phew, that's done. And they run
Mm-hmm.
down the street in the rain. Mr. Kim says he has a plan for dealing with the basement folk, the folks in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
Only it's been pouring rain this entire time, and at this moment you remember, oh wait, they're on the top of the hill, so all of the water's flooding downwards.
And I never once, when it was raining that whole time, I never once thought about that until they started
Get to
getting
the
home. Like
street.
a little, yeah. And I
Yeah,
was like,
that
phew, oh man.
this is probably the best part of the movie for me.
Mm-hmm.
When they step back and it's flooding really badly, because then that's well, it's this is my favorite scene, but it's also informed by what happens later. They rush home to see that the house is completely flooded, and like the toilet's like exploding, and it's well, and which is so it's both funny and really sad because Jessica has to sit on the toilet to keep it from like exploding and flooding even more, and she like has to light a cigarette. It's very
See, and that's the thing that what's so clever about this movie to me was how well he was able to mesh comedy with drama and suspense and everything because he never once changed who the characters were from beginning to end. But even when you know that it's a dire situation with their whole house being flooded, the the fact that she does that is still funny, even though you feel bad, but it's
yeah.
not out of character at all.
It's one of those. It would be. It's funny to us because we're not in it, and if it did happen to us, it'd be funny in retrospect, right? Like you would say, like a couple years later, oh my gosh, remember the time my house flooded and I had to sit on the toilet to keep it from
Mm-hmm.
exploding?
Yeah,
Uh, and it's floods because they forgot to close the windows to the apartment.
which again was set up early on that I didn't even think about. I didn't put all of that whole flooding and windows open together until they got to the street.
Kevin saves the generosity rock, and they get to make it to this evacuation zone at a gym, which him grabbing the rock is again, which I think the rock should have been in the movie more like as a thing, because you only see him pick it up once. It's in the background when they're at the apartment, but
And that's the only thing that he grabs
it
when
is
they're leaving home.
because it's clinging to him. It's like it's clinging to him. He says like he can't escape it.
Yeah, because they were having such a good run of luck that I don't know if maybe he was becoming more like overconfident in what that rock actually meant.
And then Kevin asks what the plan was. And Mr. Kim says that he doesn't have a plan because plans can go wrong. Kevin says that he would deal with the basement problem. And during all of this, uh, the basement man tries to use Morse code to send a message to the sun because the sun is in
Mm-hmm.
Cub Scout, so he would know Morse code. And the old housekeeper dies because she has like a seizure and then dies, or she realizes and she like gets sick, and then we don't actually see her dies, but she dies.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that's again like through that entire thing, I'm like, oh my god, that was the longest freaking night ever.
But and that was another thing. Like this movie was what 2 hours and I think 12
12?
minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like a 2 hour and 12 minute movie as far as like the story doesn't seem like it's trying to put too much in it. It doesn't seem like it's got too little in it, and it keeps you engaged enough through the whole movie that I never really felt that runtime. Because it seemed like every time I was starting to, my mind was starting to slow down a little bit to be like, okay, what's going to happen next? Like where a movie that doesn't do it right would normally be having like kind of a lull in what's going on. As
Yeah.
soon as you start to feel like you might be getting close to that, something else happens that you're just like, okay, hold on a second. Like, it gets you right there, but then drags you back into the story every time. That's how it was for me when I watched it.
I really feel like I think it felt like I was actually surprised it was so short because I felt like I was with that movie for like hours. Like I thought I was with it for like 2 or 3, like for like 3 hours. I felt like I was in that movie with those characters in like the good way. Not like
Yeah.
it was dragging, but just like, oh my God, this is still going. This is not, again, not in the bad way, not in like the, oh my God, just end. It's more like, oh my God, it's still going. What's gonna happen?
I know. I didn't want it to end.
Uh,
I
the
wanted
next
go ahead.
The next morning is gorgeous, and the Parks decide to throw a party. So from this moment, when you meet all of the rich friends, is why I like the flooding scene because they all live above everybody, so they do not deal with the
Mm-hmm.
problems of people below them. And that's
Yep.
constantly a thing. The basement man is below them. He is less than them. And I missed this, but the Mama Kim, has a great line where she's like, "They can afford to be nice. They're rich. They can afford to be nice. If she was rich, she would be
Yeah.
nice."
Yeah.
And so that's super interesting. They decide to throw a party for the song. They invite Kevin and Jessica over. Mr. Kim goes out to pick up party supplies with the madam, who is
None of them want
constantly
to be there.
yeah, they all had the worst night ever. They all probably stink because they were in a flood and then definitely couldn't shower.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and during the drive, the Adam notices the smell, and the dad sees that she notices, and he's like, all tense about it.
Mm-hmm.
Later, Mr. Park and Mr. Kim hide behind the bushes and plan to be evil Indians to be stopped by the sun, because that'd be cute, that'd be fun to do. Park says that he'll be paid extra for this, and they bond over trying to be the best they can for the family, which is like, even if it's embarrassing, which is just so good.
Mm-hmm.
Which is like kind of what hit me. I was like, oh, but then where this goes, I did not see coming at all.
No, no, I wasn't expecting it to go down this road.
Because if you think just finding the guy in the basement spiraled the movie out of control, which it definitely did, it just keeps going after like it stops for a minute and it just goes more.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Kevin and the daughter kiss, and Kevin asks if he fits in because he doesn't feel like he does. Uh,
And she
Kevin,
never says yes. She just kind of nods her head, which I thought was interesting. I probably looked into that a little bit too much, but it was more of like I don't know. I feel like if it could be a culture thing, but I know that if I asked somebody that and they just nodded their head and didn't say yes or no one way or the other, I feel like,
you'd
oh,
be like,
great,
"Oh,
there's
you
some
mean
doubt there.
no?" Yeah, you'd be
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you mean no?" You just don't want to say it. That. I think the daughter. We don't get enough of the daughter other than she likes Kevin.
Hmm.
I wish. I mean, I think you could maybe expand on her more, but it's not about her, so I guess I kind of get it.
Yeah.
Uh, Kevin goes downstairs to the basement to where he drops the rock,
Hmm.
because again, it's weighing him down. Can't forget that. Like, think about it, it's supposed to be generosity, but it's a
Hmm.
rock. It can't do that. You make your own, like, rich, like your own thing. It's very, it's that. Uh, Leading, and then he finds the housekeeper dead. The basement man attacks, and they have this little, like, fight in the cellar that leads up to the basement, where basement cellar, however you want to do it, whichever one it is for you. With the basement man smashing Kevin's head in with the generosity rock.
Okay. I thought at this point Kevin was just like he was done, KO done.
Yeah,
I
it should
mean,
have killed him. He
yeah,
should be
yeah,
dead.
not just once, but twice he was hitting the head with that rock, and that's a big rock.
It's a big rock. You see it's heavy because they both have trouble carrying the thing.
Hmm.
This is too much blood. And then of course the basement man drinks the plum juice. So
Hmm.
hey, it's paying that off. You didn't think it would pay that off, but it does.
Yep.
The basement man makes it to the kitchen where he gets a knife, and then he goes and stabs Jessica in the heart with the knife, and says that he wants Mama Kim to show herself. Uh, is it Mr. Kim who attacks him with the kebab skewer?
I think so.
I put it was him, but now I'm second guessing. Uh, he
I think
attacks
it
him
was
with
him.
the basically the samurai sword full of meat and stabs him.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Doing this, Mr. Park wants the keys because they need to take their son to the hospital because he'd of course be having a seizure. If he saw a ghost and then that ghost attacked and killed your art teacher,
I thought that was actually kind of funny.
it is funny,
He's like,
but also he just collapses immediately.
oh, I just thought it's funny because like the kid, I was putting in perspective how the kid was feeling. Probably he's like, yeah, a long time ago, I was scared about this ghost in the basement, and you guys didn't believe me, and now look, the ghost came back, and now he's killing everybody.
The Park daughter saves Kevin, which is like again I thought he was just dead, so it's weird.
Yeah, I thought it was dead, like really
Yeah.
dead.
When the Park dad retrieves the keys, he smells them and makes a real stank face. He's like, "Whew, they stank." And
Stank
this,
face.
and then Mr. Kim snaps basically and rushes and stabs and kills Mr. Park, then walking away,
Mm-hmm.
which is just insane that happens. Also, I mean, I know this is all in Mr. Kim's head when this happens, so I can see from his perspective why a little bit, right? Because you've been insulted about how you smell, and the guy just gives you the
Mm-hmm.
biggest stank face by accident.
Yeah.
But also, those keys are under a dead body with a guy who probably hasn't showered in years.
Well, he was also upset because he was trying to get him to drive them originally, and didn't
Yeah,
care at all about any of the other people that were working for him,
I
which
get because
showed
they're
another
below
thing
him.
of like yeah.
They're
So
below
I think
him.
that's
Good
that's
job.
also part of it. He was just looking for a reason to like react to it.
Yeah, and we know that that's his daughter, so of course you wouldn't leave your daughter. But
No.
also on top of that, which the Mr. Park doesn't know. But also, it's like a person who was just stabbed.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe send just your wife, and there's like a dozen other people at that party, a dozen other rich people. Send them to the hospital, maybe. But anyway, Mr. Kim stabs Mr. Park and walks away. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
this bit is weird, like the entire ending, because it's a voiceover which we've never had in this film until now, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought's a weird choice. That's one of those things where on a second watch I was like, that's I'm not sure about. No, I guess it works because they're letters both times, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that works. We just don't see him writing it. Uh, Kevin somehow survived with just some mild like, brain damage, but he's fine.
And he turns into the Joker, which I put two and two together while we were talking about it. But
I
in the
guess.
Joker movie, he laughs when he feels uncomfortable or insecure, or whatever that may be. And because of the head trauma that
He
Kevin
got,
had,
yeah, he
he
received
he laughs when in a serious situation. I don't know if it's just because,
of the brain
or if it's because
damage.
or if it is because it's a serious situation. That's how his brain is reacting, because it's almost like his brain is reacting to the irony of everything that's going on.
Maybe because he's laughing. Well, I'll get to it then. Somehow he and Mama Kim just get probation for everything they did.
I thought that was interesting.
If this was in America, you can tell that this is like different because like culturally, because in America,
You'd be in
like
prison for a while.
he would be in prison. Like that'd be part of the class thing is that he would be in prison, but maybe one of like the Parks did the same thing or was doing something similar, and they only got probation.
Hmm.
So that'd be like a big thing in America if you did this movie. But they only get probation. They visit Jessica's like ceremony. Like I don't know what that is. I don't want to say like grave because it's not like a like a grave the way we think about it. It's like her
Well,
ashes in
they're
a.
yeah.
It's her
So
the
I was gonna say it's their
ashes
ashes.
in like the spot that you go to. That's is it a mausoleum? Is that really what it is?
Maybe I don't. I'm not for sure on that.
And he's still laughing because it's like it is unreal. And it's just so like surreal that it happened. But then when he watches the actual videos, like the news reports, it is not.
Mm-hmm.
And he watches the news reports and finds out that his dad did completely escape. They couldn't find him. They couldn't get CCTV footage of him. I
Funny
wonder.
how I completely forgot about that up until right then.
I did too. I forgot about it until it comes back, and then when I watched it for the second time, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah.
Uh, I do not like this is just a trend in movies, so this is not a problem with this movie. But just let me have a character just sit and hold a phone, and then they put the video onto it, which, again, not a problem in this movie, but I'm getting tired of that.
Mm-hmm.
Just like in movies and stuff, where it's like a character just watching something on the phone, and it's just like a still of their hand, and then like the video.
Yeah.
Again, that's not an actual problem with the movie. That's just something I'm getting tired of in media as we get to smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes sense, but also it's a movie. Just show it to me, or like put like borders around the movie and being like, this is old footage. Anyway, uh, the police tail the Kims to no success, so they just back off.
Mm-hmm.
And once this is done, Kevin goes up to the mountains where he sees the Park House. And I thought like they were still alive in there because when you see them, people are in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh, because you see a dad, like you see a father figure. So I'm like, oh, he survived. That's interesting. But then, during this, you see one of the lights blinking Morse code. Uh, and then the son records like it on his phone, like he records like the dot dot dash dash dot dot whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then he translates it. Where is it? Once decoding it, he realizes his father is alive and hiding in the basement. Because again, there's no CCTV footage, so he snuck out and then went back into the house and right down to the basement.
And what was the German line that he said about the Germans?
I'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
He was able to escape because the old housekeeper cut the CCTV wires. He was also able to bury the old housekeeper in the backyard because the house was empty for a long time after, there was a grisly, like, double murder in the house. Uh, the house was sold to a German couple who is glad that they do not just eat sausage and drink beer.
I thought that was very clever, very
He was
funny.
like, I'm glad that they German people just don't drink beer and eat sausage, which is very funny.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the house is sold to a German couple who are they're also out of the house most of the time, except for a housekeeper who is always around.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look, another housekeeper who's always around that's causing problems. Uh, Kevin says that he will make a plan. Uh-oh. And he drops off the generosity rock. He drops off the generosity rock in a river with a bunch of other rocks, so he's literally letting go of
Well,
the
that
thing that's.
too, and when it shows the rock in the river by itself with all the other rocks, you kind of realize that that rock is just an ordinary rock. Like
It
it kind of
is.
just blended in with everything else. Like it's not a means of wealth. It's not going to bring good fortune or anything like that. It's just a rock.
It is just a rock, and he has freed himself from that weight. He drops off and says that he will make enough money to buy the house, and once that happens, the dad can come out and experience the son.
Mm-hmm.
Until then, he's stuck in the basement. Uh, which we get to see that scene. I guess that's not really what happens. It's just like a thought of what could happen.
So yeah, because that's the end of the movie.
So we see that, and then we see it goes back to Kevin, who's writing all of this, and he's just like, until then, so long, and he looks up at the camera, and then it cuts to black and credits.
Yeah. So what I took from that was, I like Christopher Nolan a lot,
Yes.
but if he made this movie, it would have ended on them in that backyard of that house on a
Yeah,
happy note where you're like, did they or didn't they? But
yeah,
I think it was
that's
good.
Dark Knight Rises, isn't it? That's Rises, right? That's that scene.
Yeah, or even in Inception when you're not sure exactly like, well, did the top keep spinning? Did it fall? Like, what's what here? Like that
I
feels like something that we do is we like to leave things open ended. But I think it was more bold of him to be like, yeah, well, that's a possibility of what could happen, but realistically, come on, you know that it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So that's the end of the film, and it's like still very shocking that it goes in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
That the Kims are back in the same apartment they were in before they left.
Mm-hmm.
Drained of water, thankfully. I
Yeah,
I I would have
and the water.
assumed I would have assumed that they would have moved somewhere else, but it's still pretty impressive
Mm-hmm.
that they get to keep the place. The same, like socks are still hanging on that little like carousel above them, like a baby carousel it looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, that's the end. And it was a very, very good movie. I was very
Yeah,
surprised. I like
and we
there are
good.
very few movies that you watch, especially like Academy Award winning movies that you watch and like, oh yeah, that actually deserved it. And this is one
Yeah,
that felt like it deserved it.
it really did, and it's one of the few movies that I've seen recently. Like I know Ford vs Ferrari. I really like Ford vs Ferrari. Or like Logan. I really like Logan.
Were those
But this movie
nominated?
was well, Logan wasn't at the time. I was just throwing out movie. Ford vs
Oh,
Ferrari was, but I'm just saying I told you about this, off mic, but it all those movies are really good movies, but it always seems like no matter what, there's just something in them that doesn't let them, reach that next level. But this one was able to just kind of hit every note that it was trying to hit, and that's why I think it was so successful, critically and everything.
yeah, because it was successful critically. Again, this is like I follow very few actual like movie reviewers on YouTube and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
those same reviewers I guess it's technically last year, all thought the Green Book was not a good movie to win Best Picture, but were all agreeing that Parasite definitely should have won this year. So I'm like, okay, this is probably pretty good. Like we're probably in
And
that echelon.
and on another success note, it was made on a budget of $11 million, well, $11.4 million, and
That is
worldwide it made 254 million.
that is really impressive.
Domestically, I'm more impressed by the domestic number. So in the U.S., it made 53 million.
That is really impressive, actually.
Mm-hmm. That's
That's really good.
surprising.
Yeah, it's really and it deserves and more they use every cent of that money. It looks like then.
Mm-hmm.
The house that they shot in has to be like a couple $1 million all by itself because it's a gorgeous house.
I read somewhere that Bong Joon-ho actually had that house built for the movie,
That is
like
insane.
specifically for the movie.
That's insane. That's amazing.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, and again, I think we both like it because again, I like it for all that thematic stuff. Always like above people, what it's saying about letting go. If you're like again, symbolism of the rock being idea for generosity and how if you're poor, you are most likely always going to be that way unless you try to change something. Having to
I
lie to
love
get
that.
ahead.
I love that the movie didn't try to lie to itself or try to be more than what it was. So like everything that happens is basically just to people that are trying to get too much out of nothing. So they're expecting things to just keep going well, And instead of things ending on a good note, like a lot of movies will tend to do, it's really like kind of true of you kind of, what's the word I'm thinking of? Getting too high on yourself in this position that you're in that you don't realize how bad things can go when they go bad. And that you kind of take for granted what you have at the time.
Yeah.
And, I just kind of like that it just didn't cheat us by making it a good ending. It gave us exactly what it was trying to do.
Which, yeah, I really like that a lot of it is just based on, like, the actions the characters take. Like, it doesn't feel
Mm-hmm.
like really forced in any way, again, other than like, that a guy lives in the basement, which, again, maybe there are some really rich uh, South Korean houses that have bunkers for North Korea, so maybe that's just a thing. Like how we have bomb shelters from, the Cold War and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's a thing that I just don't know about. But like other than that one kind of gimme, it feels all very like, hey, these characters made a mistake by try to act and live in that house for a night, and then all of this
Well,
happened.
and then another thing that I brought up in my review was, you know, uh, I've never been like in that kind of position, poverty or anything like that.
Yeah, you
But
haven't been able to not afford Wi-Fi.
yeah, but I think we all in a certain way know what it's like to, struggle and do whatever it takes to, care for yourself and your family. And I like how relatable it is because it's like, yeah, these people are in a really bad position, but you can relate to them because, I mean, they're doing all that for themselves because they're trying to better themselves. And we've all kind of been there. And so, I mean, I just like that it was very relatable at the same time. Like, you can really kind of put yourself in their position. Not that you would do that, but I mean, shoot, given the opportunity, if you could get a job working for a rich family making a lot of money, I mean, would you do it? And if
I
you had the opportunity to like get other like your friends or your family in there, if there's a position for them, wouldn't you try to, do what you can to bring them on too?
That's what's the name for that? Because that's like a name for something, like that idea.
I, I'm not for sure.
I mean, now that's gonna bug me, but there's this
But it's like,
line that I think really like sums up what the kind of what's talking about when the in that second Pisso scene when the guy comes back. Right before that, the dad talks about, man, anytime even a security job opens, everybody with a degree is rushing to the job.
mm-hmm,
And we got
yep,
lucky all being able to work for this one rich family. And like,
yeah,
boy, if that doesn't just sum up where the world is headed right now, I don't know what does.
yeah. I mean, it's socially, it feels a lot like um, Get Out to me, Jordan
I can
Peele's
see
movie,
that. Yeah, I can see that.
because they both are so good. Which I still think Get Out. What year was that? 2017.
Yeah,
Oh,
20.
I think The Shape of Water won that year.
It
But Get
did.
Out was nominated. Um, but I just think that they both are trying to get a message across with like their social commentary and everything, but they both make a great movie without hitting you over the head with the social commentary. Like these two movies feel are completely different movies, but they feel so similar at the same time that I wonder if Bong Joon Ho saw that and maybe like that'd be a question that I would ask him is, did you have any inspiration writing this from seeing Get Out? Like, did you watch Get Out and this idea came to be, or how that whole if Get Out had any kind of um, effect on this movie and making it and everything?
Yeah, because they're both like like they're story focused first and trying to tell a good story
But they
with,
feel so similar at the same time.
yeah, because they're both about, something darker going on, though they're completely different things and trying to one's more like of a race focus, and this one is more like class focused. But
And
there's
they
always
and
something
really,
more.
if you look at them very similarly, I mean, going act by act, the act ones both kind of start, relative, like not story wise, but in both movies they kind of start off a little bit more lighthearted. Something's going on, but things aren't actually dark, and everybody's just kind of in a good mood and jokey. And then there's that point in the middle of the movie that happens in both of them where things start to get a little bit darker, and then you've got your final act where everything just hits the fan. So I mean,
Yeah.
really, they are very, very similar movies, but totally different at the same time.
Which I think I kind of do like that little subversion of the nicest part of the movie, the nicest like looking, like nice, bright, shiny daytime is when the darkest thing in the movie happens. That's the thought that
Mm-hmm.
just occurred to me of, hey, it's a super nice day outside, and that is when two people are violently murdered. Three people are
Yeah, that
violently
is
murdered.
interesting.
So, do you want to hit the spinner and see what we actually I'm hitting the spinner to see what we are doing next time.
Yeah, well, so we can let them know what's going on next. Well, yeah, next time we have a
Uh,
episode.
put in a little nice cool spinner noise here.
Do 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 do.
All right, so this is super weird, cause uh you've seen it. I've sent it to you now. What the next movie is?
And
It
keep in
goes.
mind, we listed them. There's what 92,
There's
92 movies.
92, and we put it in literally a wheel randomizer that just goes.
Mm-hmm.
And the movie, we go from a movie that neither of us have seen to a movie that like I could almost do an entire thing without actually watching it. 1994's Forrest Gump, a movie that is just like I've seen so many times. I think only one of them all the way through, but I've seen all of it in
Yeah, I've
different
seen it.
chunks.
I've seen it a bunch, but I don't think I've actually seen it in several years. So I'm pretty excited to get to watch this one again and actually sit down and go through, take notes and everything.
Yeah, this one I
So
can take all sorts of notes because I've seen this movie. It feels like a million times. This is going to be a weird movie to talk about because it's a movie that just seems to have always existed. It feels weird to me to have to think about it in any way, being like, oh yeah, it's always been there. There's nothing about it you need to
hmm
think about. So next time, Forrest Gump, 1994, Tom Hanks, Robert Zemeckis, other people who I don't know, Dan, Captain Dan.
yeah, I'm excited for it. But yeah, if you guys haven't seen Parasite, you need to make sure you go out and give it a shot. I know, I mentioned in my review that I understand that a lot of people aren't very keen on in our country and reading anything with subtitles, which
Oh
I
my
don't think is
god.
very fair.
Oh my god. I did not bring up the biggest problem I have with the movie. Oh my god. The subtitles on Amazon Prime too small.
I
Not
wonder
as
if
not as much a problem the second time because I was used to it, but first
yeah,
time I'm like these subtitles are too small. I
I
wear
wonder if
my
it's the same
glasses.
on the Voodoo.
I can read it fine. Too small. I would want them at least like two or three font sizes bigger. Oh my
hmm
god. That was the one thing when I was watching it bugged me so hard. I'm like, I want to make because on Amazon you usually can, but it's not provided by the service, it's provided by the movie.
hmm
Because I rented it subtitled. I can't rent it in any other way. So
Yeah.
that bugged me. Oh my gosh.
Well,
I almost
look.
forgot. God, I almost
But
forgot.
yeah, I just think everyone needs to at least give it a shot because this is a great movie.
It's really good. What was the dig that they made? Like there are great movies out there. You just have to look like 8 inches above the screen or something like that. Like some dig when it won.
Yeah.
So uh until then, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, our blog, and YouTube at Tower City Media.
Make sure if you guys have any topics or questions that you guys want us to address to send them in our email at towercitymedia@gmail.com.
And if you've seen the movie, leave comments. If any of them are really good or interesting, we might read them out.
Yeah. We can do a separate audio for that, just discussing what everyone else thinks about
Or we could do that on the next one. It depends. We'll see. It's all fluid. Just like
it.
this river where all of the Oscars live. Because, again, Oscar. That joke's dumb. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was trying to do a bit where it's like, okay, Oscar bait. You're watching, you, viewer, listener, are looking at the little thumbnail or the video, and you see a little fishing pole with the, like, I was trying to do something. I'm just gonna put that abort that eject thing now. I'm so sorry. It's a great
But
movie. See it. Hope you stick around, and we will catch you next time.
we'll catch you guys next time with Forrest Gump.